Morning everybody, how are you all doing? So I'm just going to show you this, right? This is what has made it impossible for me to come out and do my morning walks recently. It's absolutely flooded down this area down here. It's waterlogged. Thanks, Mr. Crow. Right, let's get on to this morning's video. So I've been watching the news online, various outlets. I don't particularly take particular notice of the mainstream media because we all know it's absolute propaganda and bullshit, isn't it? So Starmer is arranging a peace summit with Western European leaders and Zelensky of Ukraine to talk peace about their peace plans going forward with Russia. And this is all because Russia and America, President Trump, have excluded them from the peace talks table. Because like President Trump said, you know, they had 4 years to go to the peace table and they refused to do it. They in fact, you know, we had Boris Johnson go over to Ukraine and talk Ukraine out of a peace deal that was being formulated in Turkey between Russia and Ukraine. Boris Johnson torpedoed that peace deal. So he has blood on his hands. And we've got to stop thinking of this as Western governments doing this. You've got to start thinking of this as the globalists doing this. They want their forever war. And this is their idea of a forever war with Russia. They'll passively, aggressively keep arming Ukraine. They'll keep sending them aid. And this isn't because they believe in Ukraine's sovereignty or anything like that. This is because it's an opportunity for them to launder their money. They will send aid, our taxpayer money, out to Ukraine. It will then be filtered through various NGOs and charities and institutions where it will be filtered through, and it will come back where it's unrecognisable, back into the back pockets of the very people that have sent it there, the politicians, the corporations and that sort of thing. That's why Starmer, Macron and whoever's in charge of Germany now, because I haven't got a fucking clue, that's why they want this forever war to keep going. It's got nothing to do with protecting the people of Ukraine or the sovereignty of Ukraine. It's got everything to do with lining their pockets and the pockets of their masters. That's what it's got to do with. So this is like a little tantrum of little children getting together. Well, let's go to the peace table, so we'll create a summit of our own, which will be ineffectual, by the way. Which will be totally ineffectual, because as I've stated in previous videos, the combined force of Europe isn't enough to take on Russia. It really isn't. They're relying heavily on America staying involved in this for their little plan to keep going ahead. And it's not going to happen to such a point now where President Trump and his administration, they can see exactly what the Western globalists are doing. They're just trying to stoke the fires of war with their controlled mainstream media that is constantly pumping out propaganda against Russia, saying Russia's the bad guy, Russia's going to do this. And I've got to address this, right, because they said, oh no, Russia's prepared to fight a war against Russia. Yeah, every country in the world is prepared to fight a war. I'm sure many of you have heard the old saying that if you want peace, prepare for war. Every country is always on preparedness to fight a war anywhere in the world. That's why we have armed forces, isn't it? That's why we have armed forces. They're constantly at a ready state to go on alert and fight a war anywhere in the world. Some are more prepared than others. Just want to remind everybody that, and this made me laugh as well, that our government stated that it wanted to send 800,000 British troops to Ukraine as boots on the ground. There's a slight problem with that, and that problem being is that we have less than 18,000 combat-ready troops in this country. So if you read between the lines, that means they're preparing for conscription. They're going to start conscripting people into the army. That's the only way they could ever send 800k troops to the Ukraine. So they're preparing for conscription, and we've already seen rumblings of it in France with this new voluntary joining, this voluntary service, join the army. And pretty soon I guarantee you, when they don't get the numbers they want, that voluntary status will turn into mandatory, and they will start conscripting people in France into the army. The same will happen here. They'll start conscripting people into the army to fight their forever war. And that is what is going to happen. And so, you know, like I said, President Trump can see the way this is going, and he's more or less said, right, if you're going to fight this, you're going to fight it on your own. To such a point now where he's actually threatening to remove the United States from NATO. He's saying we're having no part of it, and he's seriously considering taking the United States out of NATO. And if that happens, then NATO will no longer have any teeth, because for the longest time in our history, America has been the backbone of NATO. Without America, NATO is basically nothing. It really isn't. And Trump knows that, Putin knows that. I think everybody that is intelligent and that can read a book knows that as well, that's followed history. So basically, if America pulls out, it will turn America into a toothless tiger. It will turn NATO into a toothless tiger. That's what it will do. And that's its intention. It's to say, look, me and President Putin, we're trying to go for peace, we're trying to get a peace settlement, and all the European leaders are trying to do is trying to sabotage the peace talks with constant talk of Russian aggression, which is non-existent. You know, let's not forget, right, the only reason Russia came out and said that if Europe wants a war, it's ready, is because of all the saber rattling that Europe has been doing. It's been falsely saying that Russia wants to invade Poland and all these sort of countries, saying no, we don't. And if Russia really wanted to do that, it would just do that. It really would. It would just do it. Like I said, the aggression has been coming from NATO, which was supposed to be a protective force, not an expansive, aggressive force, which is what it's become. If you look at the NATO map in Europe, and you're wondering why Russia is nervous about Ukraine joining NATO, then think about this. Think about how nervous America got when Russia was going to put its missiles on Cuba, 90 miles away from Florida. And that's a similar situation with Russia and Ukraine. Imagine how nervous Russia's going to get if NATO puts long-range missiles right on its border. With basically, it would be able to, NATO would instantly be able to launch missiles straight into Russia without any sort of warning. So yeah, NATO's become an expansionist, aggressive entity. It's expanded all around Russia's borders, and if any of our enemies had done that, we would be making the same noises that Russia is making. Now, I'm not defending Putin in any way, shape or form. Yeah, he has an oppressive regime and that sort of thing, but I'm just pointing out there are literally no good guys in this situation. You can argue the point that, yeah, President Trump is doing his best to try and sort the situation out, but there literally are no good guys in this situation. There are no good guys, there are no bad guys in this situation. They're all equally in this together, and the only people that are going to suffer in this is me and you if they get their wish. Because all these world leaders, they'll be down in their little bunkers, all nice and cozy, while the whole world turns nuclear and glows in the dark for thousands of years. Just a thought for today. This is Vindicator, sign off.